Hello, and welcome. Welcome to Netflix as a Cinema, the podcast that this week has randomly been emailed about whether they'd like to review Ewan McGregor before he makes his debut in cinemas. But hey, I guess things are happening. My name is Tosin, and I am the host, and I am based up in a place called Bromsgrove near Birmingham. And joining me as always on the Isle of Wight is Sharon Bolin.
Hello.
Shaun Harris.
Yeah.
And from London, our London correspondent who gets to see all of the fun movies because London gets them and when nobody else does, it's Holly Nesling.
Hello.
Right, so what we do on this show is that we go to the cinema, we see a couple of things each week, we rate them out of 5, we stay at home, we watch a couple of things to completion, rate them out of 5, put them all up against each other, and we see where our money has been better spent this week. So, hence the name Netflix is Cinema. So this week in cinema, I believe Shaun and Holly, you are the ones holding up the cinema's end of the bargain.
Yeah, there hasn't been huge amounts at the cinema, really. There's not been, not on the island. I mean,
not anywhere.
No.
Yeah, we've maxed out everything that we haven't seen that we could bear to watch.
Yeah, I feel like I think that there's still the Dune effect. People are running away from Dune, which has just gone past. Which has gone past 500 million at the box office, the global box office, $500 million, and Holly has been doing her very best to make sure that it gets even further.
I've only seen it 3 times.
There's what I was going to say is there are a couple of horror films on, but they don't interest me in the least. I've had enough of horror films now. I would go and see them purely for the blog, but I just know they're going to be.
Let me guess. Imaginary. You
Imaginary.
Saw Imaginary. You saw. And I was thinking at this. I was going like, I was thinking. Okay, number one, I did not think Shaun could be bothered to go watch that. Even if Shaun could be bothered to go watch that, it would just be Shaun sitting in the in the cinema, squirming in his seat, going, "What are you doing?"
Exactly.
and then you spend all the time from watching the film to coming onto the podcast just sharpening knives. That's all you ever do.
Immaculate is about to come out as well.
Immaculate. Yeah. What is it? Okay, I'm beginning to feel that when you have like a one-word movie title, it's usually a horror movie.
Yes.
And you can only give a one-word review.
Exactly. and one-word movie title horror movies, you're just kind of like, I mean, I hear them just go,
I think Immaculate is very much going to, it's a horror film involving nuns, so you know pretty much where it's going to go.
Well, yeah. I think the main thing about Immaculate, and the thing with this film, right, is I have a sneaky suspicion that this film was filmed a while back, but because it has Sydney Sweeney in it, and she's having a bit of a moment with her appearance on Saturday Night Live, and with the film Anyone But You being one of those surprise hits of the last couple of months, I reckon that the people who made Immaculate were like, quick, put it out there. She's having a moment.
Because Anyone But You was kicking around in the cinema for what felt like years.
It has been there for absolute ages. It has. I remember we've spoken about the fact that rom-coms, you don't really get rom-coms in cinemas anymore.
Yeah, they just sort of disappeared from the cinema landscape, didn't they?
Yeah, and then this one seems to have bucked the trend. So you can imagine that there's going to be a whole bunch of people who are going to very unimaginatively put rom-coms back in the cinema, and then they're going to all sort of like flop, and then they're going to go back to Netflix until they figure out some other weird conglomerate of issues that means that we found another one that's a hit. Because I bet you that nobody knows why Anyone But You has been such a hit and has hung around in cinemas for no one. I bet you nobody knows.
I just, every time I saw the poster for it, it's like, just don't want to. I don't know what it's about. Just don't want to do it.
Well, I feel like if you've seen one rom-com, you've seen this.
All of them.
You've seen this.
I'm prejudiced in any way.
Yeah, I think about the only thing that they could say about this is that it's set in Australia, and that's about it. But it's kind of like the put of it. Okay, if you want terrible film alert that I think even Shaun might have some fun ripping it into. There's a film on Netflix called Irish Wish.
Right.
Oh, it's got Lindsay Lohan in it, hasn't it?
Starring Lindsay Lohan.
I saw the banner came up and I was like, what was that? And I was like, no, not going there.
It feels like it could be another Persuasion.
Oh, yeah.
But I don't
I'm
think
just,
that
my
there's
ears are bleeding from all those Irish accents. They're just waiting to assault it.
I don't think that there's any world in which this film is good. I just I just feel like that. I don't feel there's any
There is.
world in which this film is good.
You know the Clean Bible, now watch it, don't you?
What?
You know I'll now watch it.
I know
like
you'll
a
now
dare,
watch it.
isn't it? It's
I
just
have
like-
laid my plan, my very, very carefully laid plan.
Only one of us who is stupid enough to watch something knowing it's going to be bad and rolling her sleeves up and going, "Oh, fun!"
Ooh.
Oh no, I might join you in
I
that.
might
I
say,
mean,
just don't dare me to watch it, because it's like, if you dare me, I tend to take dares. It's like, just please don't, because I don't want to watch it.
Sharon.
I won't be able to do next week, by the by, because it is my birthday.
Oh, happy birthday!
Birthday
That's that
wishes.
date that I should know. Yeah. That's
If I can never remember your birthday either, so it's fine.
all right. Okay. So I think
January.
but thing is, Holly, I might join you in watching this film because I have been doing a lot of sort of like late night soothing of a baby, and I think it's the kind of thing that I might just go, you know what? My brain is addled enough from the lack of sleep that this seems like a good idea. Let's watch
Well,
Irish
so-
Witch.
And it'll be baby suitable. So you wouldn't be worrying about having something on that was not appropriate for
Well,
child
thankfully,
who
she
doesn't
is
understand things.
she is young enough that I don't think she started picking up words yet. So she's young enough where I still have that window where I can watch whatever I want when it's just her. If her older sister's around, heck no. But with just her, she's young enough. But anyway, let's stop talking about kids and let's stop talking about Netflix and let's talk about Lindsay Lohan and let's start talking about things that we actually saw in cinema this week. So I'm gonna go straight in. Shaun and Holly, you both saw this and you saw Drive Away Dolls. So Holly, can you give us a little bit of a preview of what Drive Away Dolls is all about, and then we can jump into. Then Shaun can rip it to a new one.
Yeah, so it's
What?
it's both the easiest film to explain and the least easy film to explain. But in summary, two lesbians decide that they are going to pick up a sort of hire car. It's a car that you deliver to somewhere. It's called a drive-away.
Driveway. I used to do them. I did them in the late 80s, 90s, driveaways. Yeah.
So they are going to do this and go to visit the aunt of one of them. And off they set, and it turns out that they have something in the car that they should not have, and loads of people are pursuing them. And it is possibly the funniest thing they turn out to have in the car. But, you know, one cannot say because that spoils the
Yes,
fun.
yes.
But it did make me cry with laughter. So they head across country in the US, not going the route they should have done, as one of them, but who is a footloose and fancy-free person who does whatever she feels like, tries to help the other one sort of feel liberated and free
Yes.
and sort of
Yeah.
traumatized. And maybe to go and do things that are, you know, not suitable to show to small children.
Yeah.
And hilarity and lunacy ensues. It's got some wonderful sort of cameos with Miley Cyrus appearing in it, and
I've
Matt
heard
Damon,
about this.
which are unexpected in many ways, and it is thoroughly enjoyable and completely ridiculous.
All right, cool.
Just bizarre.
So what I know about this is that it stars Margaret Qualley and Geraldine Viswanathan. So yeah, as the two lead characters, and I hear that because it's directed by one of the Coen brothers and his wife. So it's Ethan Coen and Trisha. I can't remember her last name. Why? No.
It is very Coen's.
Yeah. So yeah. And even when you were saying that, I was getting like shades of Raising Arizona and like, you know, Fargo and stuff like that. But Shaun, what did you think?
Okay, so this one I have to agree with Holly. It's not very often. Right now, I knew nothing what to expect. I thought this was going to be, funny enough, from the trailer, I thought it was going to be some sort of 70s road movie film. I thought, oh, this would be good. So I knew nothing about the lesbian aspect of it, and
I hadn't either. It has got another name that they show
Yeah.
at the end that is less.
Yeah, no,
so-
it's okay. No, it's. I think Joe. Okay,
what I
and
like
the filmmakers have been very, very clear about the name that it should have. I wouldn't say it just because it might still be a surprise, but they've been happy to spoil it in all the interviews that they've been doing. Sorry, carry on, Shaun.
Yeah. So anyway, so there's some great situations. It's not very often with comedies that I laugh out loud. I mean, there wasn't many people in there, but I actually laughed out loud at a few moments, especially the ending. I thought I was laughing, and I really loved. I think what's really refreshing about it is you get a lot of films about gay men, but there's not that many films about lesbians, which is quite interesting, and the world they live in, and like that. Because I've always thought, there must be gay clubs, and now there must be, obviously
lesbian clubs,
which they go to. So, and all the way through, you got like these two hitmen sort of characters, which are like good old duo, like you get, which I thought was some. Even thinking about it now, some of the conversations they were having were fairly good, and they end up at this soccer club, and they get directed. They're chasing the girls, obviously, and they go, oh, they send them off. I won't say where they send them off to, but they sort of say, oh yeah, we know where they've gone, and they go right out into the backwoods of good old Georgia. You know what I mean? So and they're having a conversation while they're going out there. So there's lots of, and we got good old Matt, haven't we? Really, who's just like terrific. I think. Fair play to him, hats off to him, because
Matt Damon.
Matt Damon, yeah,
Matt
he's
Damon.
just I won't say Holly, you know what I'm saying, don't you? So so this was a major surprise for me. And I think with Coen stuff, some are hit. I like some of theirs, some of them are not so good. I mean, I think some of them are overrated, especially Fargo, which I'm probably being pilloried for, but I think that's overrated in my opinion. But there was great set pieces. There were funny characters, typical Coen characters, especially Curly.
It's a good script.
It's terrific.
Sharp.
Okay, so I'm actually quite happy I'm happy to hear that the both of you agree on this. Although one thing I think I would like to point out is that because for Shaun, you said the lesbian aspect plays quite a big part in this story and everything like that. And because there's one of the Coen brothers who makes this film, a lot of people have been talking about it almost like it's a Coen brothers movie. But this is Ethan Coen and his wife Trisha Cook, who it's an unusual situation. She identifies as a lesbian. So the lesbian bit comes from her. And so the lesbian infusion comes from Trisha Cook. So I just wanted to just because a lot of people keep start comparing it to other Coen brothers movies and everything like that, I just wanted to say it's a Ethan Coen and Trisha Cook film.
Yes, okay. Yeah. Well, whatever. But so what you made me lose my train of thought now, Tosin.
Sorry.
Yeah, and I had something quite profound, but I can't remember. I think the actual scenes where there was any intimacy between was particularly well done. It wasn't graphic. There wasn't much. You could see what was going on. There was like a shower scene with smoke glass and that. And I thought that was handled really. In my opinion, that whole scene was handled really, really well. I mean, I don't know what Holly's opinion was.
Yeah, they did, and they dealt with various things in combinations of tasteful ways and very funny ways.
Yeah.
It's an absolutely ridiculous film.
It's funny. It's not very often I laugh out loud in a movie.
No, it was properly funny.
There was some moments in it, and I was like, And I love the characters. Yeah, there's some great characters. I did particularly like the two hitmen and the
marvelous.
And the billboard the in Florida, and the billboards with those proper American cheesy, like, oh wow, it's like Florida.
It's so much fun.
Yes.
All right, cool. So how many stars would we give this bundle of fun?
Okay, for me, I enjoyed it. I thought it was really, really good, and so I'm going to give this a strong 3. But because it was an enjoyable movie, so I'm going to give this one a good strong 3.
All right, I'm going to do the same.
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
So I thought, it was great. It was a very strong film. It's not going to change the world. It doesn't need to change the world.
No.
If it's on TV sometime, I will happily watch it again because it's so ridiculous.
The end of this class,
I'm
the
just,
very sort of the end bit, I was
just
like in hysterics.
Okay, you
Anyway,
know, and okay, now the way you guys have spoken about this, and especially the fact that this film made Shaun laugh in a cinema, that this has jumped up my list of things to watch. It's now jumped up my list of things to watch. All right,
you watch it and then we must talk about it once you've seen it, but probably not on the podcast because the, uh, it would
subject
involve
matter.
too many spoilers and it's just too weird.
we could always do a sort of special marked spoiler section where we be like, okay, don't watch this until you've watched Drive Away Dolls. All right, okay, now let's go on to. I'm gonna go with Sharon because you have been sitting there nice and nice and patient while we all talk about things that we have watched or we know about or anything like that, or while I dare you to watch Irish Wish. And so we're gonna go over to you. You watched something called Quo Vadis Aida last week. Now, Quo Vadis is something that I know of and I've heard of, and I have swords and sandals and everything like that, old school film. But Quo Vadis Aida, never heard of. What is this?
Yeah, this is nothing I've ever heard of. I came across this by chance, just scrolling through the BBC iPlayer. They sort of sometimes have like these out there films that are a little bit unusual, and this is one of those. It's an international film. It wasn't made by any one country, and it was a collaboration between a number of nations, and it is about the Bosnian conflict. And Quo Vadis Aida basically is a quote. Basically, it means in the classic, whither thou goest, or modern translations like where are you going? So where are you going, Aida? And Aida is a UN translator who basically volunteers for the UN to translate from Dutch. She works with the Dutch United Nations forces, translating into Serbia, into Serbian. It's set in the Serbian region of the whole Bosnian conflict. And she is an ethnic Muslim, but she is born in Serbia, but her history is Muslim. And as anyone who can remember back to the Bosnian conflict, because in recent years I think it's almost like slipped from our memories a little bit, because when I saw the sort of the banner for it, I was like, oh yeah, we don't really talk about the Bosnian conflict, because before the events in the Ukraine, people always said, there's sort of been peace in Europe since the Second World War, and then they say, but there was that thing in the Balkans.
Yeah.
Apart from that thing, and then it's easy for us to sort of look away from that, thinking actually that was quite a serious matter at the time. But for those who remember it or don't, the situation in the Balkans fell apart, where basically neighbours sort of slaughtered each other. And they sort of fell apart along ethnic lines. They were like sort of the Bosnians and Serbs and the sort of people who were sort of Christian Catholics, and then sort of like Muslims. And they had lived side by side in coexistence for years and years and years. And then this conflict basically blew up. And there were the most appalling massacres on both sides, against both sides. So for those of us who are watching it from afar, it's one of those conflicts where you want to say, who are the baddies here? Because it was really hard, from my memory, to work out who you need to be supporting, or who are the good guys, who are the bad guys, because they both did these appalling acts of violence against one another. And
I was just going to say, my dad was posted to Sarajevo in '96. So as part of the sort of situation.
Yeah. So this film is set in 1995, so just before, and basically the UN who had been sent in there trying to sort this out, and they had created safe zones where people who were, Muslim could go and live safely, and they were told that you'd be protected by the UN forces. But the drawback of that was these UN forces were tiny, and they were fighting, or they were sort of trying to protect thousands of people with dozens of sort of peacetime soldiers. So a lot of these this is like before Afghanistan, this was before Iraq. So a lot of these men and women who were out there as UN peacekeepers were not combat trained. They were literally had been trained in their services, but they weren't the more experienced people now, because our armed forces now, they've been in conflicts for the last 30 years. So they've got that experience behind them. So this was a completely different ballgame for them. And so basically the town of Srebrenica was part of a UN safe zone, and Aida is acting as a translator for the Dutch United Nations forces. And she lives with her husband and her 2 sons. And she's been there, and they've been given an ultimatum that they all have to leave the town because the forces are coming in and they're going to take it over, and everyone in Srebrenica has to leave. And so literally thousands upon thousands of people flee, and they head to the nearest UN base because they're told the UN are going to protect you. And then you suddenly get this situation where you've got 20,000 people camped in and around this United Nations base. And then I believe it's the Serbs who come along, and their general who says, I want all the men to be evacuated first, and then the women and children will come later. But we want the men to be evacuated, and then to make sure that they're not armed, we're going to check them, and we're going to search them, and we're going to put them on buses, and we're just going to ship them out. And the film basically is the 24 hours before this evacuation, where Aida tries to protect her son and husband and her 2 sons by trying to get them recognized as being UN staff, like she is, because she has protection of the UN, but they're not. So it is basically this story of this family in the unfolding situation at Srebrenica in 1995. And those of you who know your history know what happened, and it is shown quite graphically what happened. But you see, it's almost like a Shakespearean play in like Romeo and Juliet, in which you know what happens at the beginning, but you still hope that what you know is going to happen won't happen.
Yeah, I had a feeling. If you want to start saying what the film was about, so what did you think?
Well, it was quite intense. It was good in that it reminded me. It was quite a recent film. It's made quite recently. I think it's coming up to the 25th anniversary of it's not a spoiler, the Srebrenica massacre. And so it's coming up to the anniversary. And this was made, I think, 2 years ago, where people were saying, we shouldn't be forgetting these events that happened on our doorstep.
Yeah.
And that they're how these events happen, and how that we have to sort of go on afterwards. And so I found it was quite powerful, very moving, very simply shot. I mean, it's not a huge cast, sort of talking parts. You probably only had sort of like a dozen talking parts. But yeah, really moving, really, really, really impactful. And it made me think about that conflict, and I probably haven't given it a thought for years, even though I knew someone who was an ex-Scotty who had been in the British UN forces out there, and sort of had a bit of a hideous ordeal when he was there. But I thought it was impactful. I thought it was powerful bit of filmmaking, and it didn't tell you what to think, but it let the story unfold. So yeah, good. Yeah, I thought it does. It was powerful, good. You couldn't say it was entertaining, because that film doesn't entertain, but it had impact. It had impact, which I like sometimes. So I would give it a 4.
Yeah, it sounds like it falls into this. I saw a list on YouTube where they said, like, here are 10 films that you'll only ever watch once, and it sounds like it would fall into that sort of category. Because the thing is that I actually think about this conflict quite a bit, because I'm a tennis fan, and the world number 1 is Novak Djokovic, who is Serbian, who is from that area. And a lot of times there's this really divisive thing that happens, especially on Twitter, about people who think he's the best thing ever and the sun shines out of his bum, and people who can't stand him because they say, his on-court demeanor and his everything like that. And the thing that always gets me is that people seem to forget that he grew up in a war zone. and because I always think that obviously he grew up there. He talks about how he had to play his tennis in a swimming pool because all the tennis courts were like bombed and stuff like that. So it's something that does occur to me quite often. And while Holly is away, because we're about to go back to cinema, she was going to talk about that. I was going to say, Shaun, you were talking about the Coen brothers movies earlier, and about how some of them you think are a little bit overrated. Mm-hmm. And I have to agree with you on that. There is this thing where no, the thing is, there's some Coen brothers movies that I think are brilliant. I think I really like No Country for Old Men, and I like the Hudsucker Proxy. The Hudsucker Proxy is not a film that a lot of people rate. They seem to think that was the Coen slumming it or something like that, making a kids film or something. But I really like the Hudsucker Proxy.
Yeah. Now, what about The Man Who Wasn't There? You seen that?
Never saw The Man Who Wasn't There. Hail Caesar, I think, is hilarious.
Yeah, I like
I think
Hellseas.
that's
Yeah,
a
I
great
think I
film.
did that one. Yeah.
Yeah, Hail Caesar I think is hilarious, but the big one that I 100% do not get, and I understand why people. I think it's one of these things where you either know it or you don't. The big one is the Big Lebowski.
Yeah. I mean,
I,
it's
I
okay. You know, it's an
yeah,
okay movie, but it's not like
yeah,
anything.
exactly. Some people talk about the Big Lebowski like it's life changing and like it's the
Yeah,
best thing, and I don't see
I
it.
don't get it. No.
I 100% don't get it, and
I mean, I'm not saying it's a bad film and I can watch it, but it's not. I don't think I don't see what's special about it at
uh,
all.
I think the way people talk about it is disproportionate. I
Yes.
feel like the people talk about is disproportionate to what it actually is. But I feel like it's just one of those things where if you're in it, you're in it. If you get it, you get it. If you
Get it.
don't, you don't.
Yeah.
And I'm happy for people who get it and people who love it, but I don't. The
I don't think I've ever seen it.
Big about. Okay, go ahead, Holly. You because I think we were all talking and there seemed to be a lot of agreement about which Coen Brothers movies we like and all that. But yeah, so you go watch a Big Lebowski and then you can let us know, and
Um,
let us know maybe we're just not those sort of people. The Ballad of Buster Scruggs. That's an interesting one.
Yes.
Yeah. All right. Cool. So now we go back to cinema and we are going to talk about The New Boy. And this is something that I mean. After last week, where I was talking about how I see colonialism everywhere, Holly, you decided to go watch a film that has colonialism right that could essentially you could just say colonialism on the poster. I mean that's you know what you're going to be in for. So tell us about The New Boy.
Uh, the new boy is stars Kate Blanchett as a nun who lives in the middle of nowhere in Australia, where with an orphanage with about 10 Aboriginal boys who are all orphans and are living there, and it begins with a young boy elsewhere, quite a way away, being sort of chased down and caught by a sort of police officer, bundled into a sack and sent off to this orphanage. And this was very much part of the Australian government's policy at the time, which was to, I think I say this with caution, they described it, their policy was described, and they say this at the start, as breed out the black. So they did what they could to separate children from their cultures, reminiscent of what happened in Canada, and this was what was going on in the early 20th century. And the film focuses on the experience of this new boy who doesn't have a name, who is slowly becoming part of the life in this orphanage in the middle of nowhere, where you have there are the two nuns who are there, and a man who helps them, and it's difficult to describe it in some ways, but it just follows this boy who was clearly very closely in touch with who he was, with the natural world around him, and his his involvement with living in this orphanage, and how they look to change him. And it's the Catholic Church, as represented by Kate Blanchett, is broadly speaking used as a synonym for the Australian government, and for this experience of seeing how the child changes, and what the very lived experience of this boy. And so it's like a microcosm of wider situation. It's
Yeah.
it's a very difficult film to watch.
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
It's an odd film. I mean, it
yeah,
was saw that after seeing Drive Away Dolls. So there's quite the two very odd films and odd in different ways.
like opposite ends of the spectrum.
Very, very different. It was thought provoking. It's well scripted. It hasn't been that well reviewed, I gather. Um, and it is a funny film to watch. It is odd. The way they do things is odd. The reasons for people's behavior are both, normal and odd. I mean, and I will just keep saying odd over and over
Yeah,
again.
yeah.
It's very, very difficult to.
Can I just ask one question, Ollie? Are the nuns nice or not nice?
Yes. So they're
The nuns,
nice.
they're nice
The
because
nuns are
normally in films we'll talk about nuns is when you get this, they're normally quite cruel. I think there was, what was it I watched on the
sadists,
plane?
aren't they,
I think it
normally?
was a Western one where like they've got Native American people that they're trying to, but that's quite brutal. They're quite brutal with them.
Yeah, they're very kind and they're very well meaning. And
Oh,
one
good.
of the nuns was Aboriginal herself. Uh,
Okay.
so I think what one could say that there's some of it, there is cruelty in their kindness, not because they mean things unkindly, but because what the nature of what's happening has an intrinsic cruelty to it.
And it just passes them by. They don't realize that it could be cruel.
No,
They
no.
think they think what they're doing is like essentially this film. I heard that this film sounds like a thesis that I might have been banging on about for years. I mean, I know, Shaun and Sharon, you've heard me banging on about this about this for years. And whenever a film about Australia comes up, and I'm quite happy that films are being made now where that sort of like Australian films are being made that reckon with Australia's past. Because I remember there was The Nightingale, and The Nightingale,
Yeah, the Nightingale. Yeah,
amazing
them
film.
fellas there. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
amazing film. But my
amazing film.
God,
Yeah.
my God, essentially, I find it really hard to think about Australia without just, letting out a big, massive, exaggerated
There's
sigh.
another one with Ray Winston. I can't remember what that one was.
Oh,
Ray Winston plays a
yeah,
policeman in the
it's like an Australian Western, isn't it?
That's it.
Yeah, I've
Yeah,
seen
yeah.
it.
It's
The
Yeah, yeah.
Proposition.
Yeah, it might be. Yeah, Proposition. Yeah,
The Proposition. Yeah, I think that's it. That's
yeah,
it. The
yeah,
Proposition.
yeah.
But I mean, it's just that because, as I said, this is like colonialism writ large about taking a local person and doing your very best to
Just to
remove
change him.
everything that they have, everything that they figured out, everything that they have experienced, and replace it with
Find them.
yours, regardless
Yeah.
of how inappropriate it is for the environment that they're in. And I'm happy this film has been made. I might watch it one of these days, but I mean, even just hearing about it is making me want to cry. So,
Yeah, I will sometime separate to this. I will talk to you about, some of the small spoilery details about how some of it is illustrated, which is very clever.
yeah,
It's
I've heard something. I've heard some sort of magic realism stuff, and there's a
yes.
lot of stuff I've heard about this film that makes me think like this is what I have always thought about coming from someone from a colonized country. This is something that I've always thought as to what we lost, and by we, I don't mean just the people who got colonized. I mean the entire world. What the entire world lost by these people being colonized and being made to
Yeah,
be
yeah.
British. But anyway, how many stars would you give The New Boy?
It's going to be a very high 3.
Okay.
It's very good. It is very good, and the reason I'm not doing one of my, going overboard high scores is because it's
Because we teased you about it last week, yeah.
yeah. But it's borderline 3-4 really. It's because it is very good and it's very interesting, and I don't want to watch it again.
Yeah, yeah. This seems to be a week for films like that. Things that we don't want to get. Okay, so Shaun, if you're okay with this, what I'm going to do is because Masters of the Air has finished now, right?
Yes, it has. But if we want to wait till Sharon watches
So that
it,
means that Sharon could have like a week to get there.
yeah,
I could
would
try
you
to
be able to
catch
catch
that
up with it in a week?
Yeah,
Do
I
you think?
could possibly do that in a week. Yeah.
Because I'm quite happy for you to do another one, and we just do 2 and 2 tonight. Because I guess the
Uh,
time must be getting on.
Okay, okay. Although one thing, I'm not sure I should be saying this way. You guys know you can share an Apple TV subscription, right?
Really?
No.
Can you do
Yes,
that with an Amazon one as well? Because I got
not with
Amazon.
an Amazon one, but with an
No.
Apple
That's
TV
what
subscription, you can do something where you add. It's called family sharing, and you can add somebody to your family, and that means that if you subscribe to Apple TV, everybody else that gets that also gets access to Apple TV.
Right. We'll have to
Yeah,
think on that one then.
I
and
will.
you can actually do it with
Netflix.
Amazon. With you can do it with Amazon as well, actually, because there is a family
I
Prime.
think, yeah, the one I looked at was because, as I say, with the Spartacus thing, they got a thing called Stars, I think, which you can have up
Yeah,
to
that's an
six
extra
success.
thing that you add on.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
So
it's extra thing you add on. Yeah. Oh, okay, cool. So in that case, we're gonna put Masters of the Air to next week, where
cool.
give Sharon some time to watch it,
My
whether she
hardest to
joins
watch
somebody's
that.
family or not, we'll see.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
yeah, and okay, I'm gonna take this and I'm gonna talk about something. I'm gonna go right in the opposite direction for talking about something colonized, and I'm gonna talk about a TV show on Disney Plus called IWÁJÚ. Now, Iwaju is this is something that I've been looking forward to for about a year because Iwaju is a Yoruba word. And I'm Yoruba. That's my tribe. And Iwaju is a Yoruba word that means in front or forward or anything like that. And this is set in a futuristic Lagos. So that Lagos is the biggest city in Nigeria at the moment. We're probably about 20 million people in that city, and this is set in the futuristic Lagos where they've looked forward and they thought, what would happen? What would this place look like? And it is set around a girl called Tola, and she lives on and essentially, let me put it this way: in the first 5 minutes of this show, I was like, okay, I think I love this because this is made by people who know their stuff. And Shaun knows about when Africa gets shown on screen. I have my you better know
Yeah,
your stuff.
you
Like
better know your stuff.
you
Yeah,
better know your stuff.
right.
Like
Yeah, yeah, no, and I love that. Toes, I love that because you can say, yeah, they got the right buses. They got
yeah,
the, and it's just like the fine detail when you watch something
yeah.
and you get that much fine detail and you think, yeah, they really made an effort to
Yeah, they
make this
really made an
something.
effort to do something, and you can really see that. And like it's also Captain America: Civil War. At the
Yeah,
beginning, I was like, it's obviously shot in South Africa, but they got the right color buses for Lagos.
yes, yes.
And Wolverine, the Wolverine Origins movie. The less said about the depiction of Lagos, the better. I
Yeah.
mean, I once wrote like a rant on it in the early days of Facebook when you could have Facebook news. I wrote a rant about how much the Wolverine movie got Lagos wrong. But with this, within the first 5 minutes, they have this whole thing where you have in Lagos, you have the island and you have the mainland. 100% true. And there's even this shot that they have where they show like an aerial shot, and you can see because there's three bridges. There's Third Mainland Bridge, there's Carter Bridge, and there's Echo Bridge that link the island and the mainland. And they have this whole thing. I'm like, oh my god, they got the geography right. That's Third Mainland Bridge. That's Echo Bridge. That's Carter.
I
And I was
love
like,
all
oh my
that.
god, yeah. And the thing and what I like about this is that it's not sanitized because there's African animation. There's this whole thing with African animation. Sorry, Sharon is animated, but there's this whole thing with African animation that's coming up. And there's a show called Super Team 4, which is another one I should review at some point. That we started watching because it's like four Zambian girl superheroes, like schoolgirl superheroes. And so my daughter's been watching that, and I've been like, yeah, this is great. This is show. And my wife having grown up in the UK. She's like, but why are they depicting all of the government officials as corrupt and untrustworthy? And she was like, why are they doing that? They're just teaching kids not to trust them. I'm like, yeah. I mean, if I'm in Nigeria, I'm like, don't trust those guys. I was like, why is this a thing for you? And in this show, they don't sugarcoat it because the whole thing, bear in mind this is a kids show. The whole storyline revolves around kids getting kidnapped. And so there's this guy. What he does is that he lives on the mainland, and the mainland is traditionally the poorer area, and the island is the place where the rich people live, because the island is, if we're going to go colonialism, that's where a lot of white people settled. So places like Ikoyi and Victoria Island and Lekki and all that kind of stuff. So this guy lives on the mainland, and what he does is that he kidnaps the kids of rich people from the island, and he holds them until they give a ransom. But what he asks the kids is telling them, your parents don't care about you, all this kind of stuff. Money means more to your parents than it does to you, and all that kind of. So you can see that he has a real sort of bee in his bonnet about the rich, and he finds this girl Tola, who is she's quite headstrong. She's a bit manipulative because she sort of manipulates everybody around her because they all work for her dad to do the things that she wants. But you can see that she's also quite lonely because her dad is like this tech genius who doesn't have time for he's kind of like a Nigerian Tony Stark, to be honest with you. And he creates this thing, like there's this lizard, there's a kind of lizard with a red head called the Agama lizard like you get in Nigeria. And he creates this thing, and the whole idea is that it's supposed to protect kids from getting kidnapped. So the whole story goes on as in where all these people come together. This guy, Bode, who kidnaps kids, sees her, realizes her dad is rich, and it comes up with a plan to kidnap her through her friend, who is not rich. So it becomes this whole thing about the rich people and the poor people, even though these two kids just want to play with each other. But this outside world keeps pulling them because one of them is being pulled by the need he has and how he has to look after his mother because his mother is ill and what that poverty is pushing him to do, and she's just thinking that the whole world is great and fine because she's been sheltered by her parents. And I identified so hard with the character of Tola because I was like, okay, my dad wasn't like mega rich or anything like that, but a lot of things about her childhood resonated because we lived on the island. I felt that I was actually quite sheltered by my dad growing up. There was a whole bunch of things about Lagos that I feel like I don't know and I still don't know. And the way that they managed to get all these things in and put them in a kids' TV show, I was just kind of like, this is great. I love this. The fact that it's Disney and you finally got the Disney money being and Disney took the effort to work with a group of people who actually know what they're talking about to produce this show. And the biggest thing, I remember when I saw the trailer and I saw, not even the trailer, just the announcement this was being made, my thing was the accents. I was like, if they get the accents wrong, if these people show up and they're supposed to be in Lagos and they're speaking in American accents, I'm out. I'm out, and I might fly to Los Angeles just to pick at Disney. But the accents are authentic, and I just think it's good. I think it's great. I think it's 6 episodes. It kind of runs out of narrative steam. I think they do a lot to make sure that they capture the world and try and imagine what a future Lagos would look like, and that stuff is great. The story itself, the narrative steam kind of runs out and it peters out towards the end. So in the end, I would give it a 3. But if this is a sign of things to come, I'm happy. I'm happy. Right, good, more of this, please. So, and that will be a 3 for IWÁJÚ.
Wow.
Yeah, it's but yeah, as it going from what Holly was talking about that makes me depressed. This makes me hopeful. So
yeah, it's nice. It is nice when they do get things right. I mean, that can make and break a film for me, as you know.
Yeah.
If they get things right, then it's like that's a real super bonus, you know. Well, it's like, yes, if they do that, it sets it up well. They like, nah, and that's it. It can kill a film for me, some stupidness.
100%. 100% do that. Yeah, Kugali Media. Kugali Media is the people who worked with Disney on this. So the only thing left to say for this week
I was just going to say before that, just say that the film I saw may have been bleak and a bit depressing, but it is also uplifting to think that these things are being thought about properly.
Yeah, that's what I say. It's good that people are thinking about it, and it's not a bit like what Sharon was saying with Quo Vadis Aida, that it's not just being, let's forget about that. Let's just move on now, everything like that. Everything is fine. Let's just forget about what we did in the past. Because it's and I think it's good that these other things are being raised up, because I feel I don't want to make a political point about it or anything like that, but there is a lot of stuff that people seem to think, and I think, Sharon, you alluded to it, that the world wars, World War I and World War II, are the only things we're allowed to remember. And they're the only things that deserve to be made, that films deserve to be made about. And I feel like all these other things, they still deserve to be highlighted and said, hey, people, we as humans, we suck, and this is how much we suck. And let's remember how much we suck, and maybe that'll help us not suck so much in the future. And I feel like they have to I don't begrudge a film like Zone of Interest being made, but I'm also like, but let's not forget about the Quo Vadis Aidas or the new boys about this world. Let's do more stuff in that vein. So the only thing left is, who do you think has won?
I think it's a tie. I think it's all pretty average week.
I think it just goes to Netflix and Friends.
Oh yeah, there was 1-4, wasn't there? You gave that one. You gave your thing for.
Yeah, home viewing might just pivot this week.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I've forgotten about that one.
You would be correct. It is home viewing that has pivoted this week by 0.5 of a star.
Well, that's not bad. That's pretty good. That's pretty good.
It's pretty even. It's pretty
not
even
like
this
there's
week.
not a huge disparity, so it couldn't have been that bad.
And we had given our cinema threes were very strong threes.
They were very strong threes, almost sort of like
they could have been almost fours.
Yeah. So, one other thing I just remembered, like to tell you about IWÁJÚ and to tell you about how much the idea of IWÁJÚ is just in the water in Nigeria. I remember when I was going to do an entrance exam at the British Council in Lagos. And this was an entrance exam for British schools before I came over. So this would have been about 1995, 1996 that this is the exam. And there was a bit in the English exam where they said, write a story about around the theme of, if I had known that before, I would not have done that, or something like that. And I remember writing a story from a first person perspective about being kidnapped. Because it was so in the water in Nigeria at that time about kids getting kidnapped. And I remember writing this and just thinking, yeah, this is just life, and not thinking. And I remember telling my wife about this, and she was like, oh! I was like, what? She's like, that's horrifying. I'm like, it is? Yeah, I guess it is. I guess it is a bit horrifying when you think about it, kids getting kidnapped. But it was just kind of like it was just kind of like the daily reality, and it was like your parents were like, okay, cool, you go from here to there, you don't go out there.
They plagiarized your story. They picked up your story, maybe.
You see, now if it wasn't so commonplace, I would think that. But because it was so commonplace, I just think these are people who probably grew up in Nigeria who are probably around about my age.
Sorry, I'm gonna have to go. Okay, I'm gonna have to go. So
okay.
I'll see you.
We'll see you later.
Week.
But Shaun, I'll tell you one, right? Next week, I want you to bring that background that has all the logos of companies and films, and we try and guess.
Okay.
I want to try and guess which film it is, because I've been doing that throughout this whole time. I've been looking at them going, okay, that's that film.
I'll keep that one on there then. Yeah.
Bring that in next week.
Yeah, that one. Yeah.
Okay, so until next week.
I'll tell you what, I'll do that, and then you can have a quick look, and you can remind us for next week. Don't tell us yet. See if you can remember more, and you can watch this whenever you want to watch it, can't you? Because you'll have this. You're recording this. All right, and give us a lowdown, because there's a couple there that I don't know.
Yeah, there's a couple I'm struggling with. There's a couple I'm struggling with, but I think I know about 80% of them.
Yeah. So
I think I know about 80% of them. But until next week, as Shaun has to go, it's a goodbye from Shaun.
It's a goodbye from me.
All right, cool. We'll see you next week, and it's a goodbye from me.
Goodbye from me.
Goodbye from me.
Thank you very much for joining us. We will go to the cinemas and see if there's anything in there besides Dune Part 2 for next week. Thank you.